Can we exchange notes and photos?
Oh, absolutely.
Is that okay? I'll rewrite mine before I send them to you because my chicken's stretched, but I'll rewrite them tonight and then I'll send them on. But if you send me photos, that'd be great.
So then when you put your arm on top of the scalp like that, just gently, and it will hold it in place. Otherwise, like this kind of stuff, it's going everywhere, right? So putting your arm on top of it like that, and then you're able to take it off without losing and messing up that top. So making sure that it's just pulled nice and strong there. What we do is pulling tension from left and right, and we pinch the plastic close to the scalp. As we do that, obviously we're pulling it nice and tight around. So we begin to twist it, which can be a little bit weird. It's a little bit finicky. You'll develop a little bit of an approach to how you handle that plastic, but not the end of the world. So pull it nice and tight, and you can ask your client to hold on to it if you want. I like to not give them many responsibilities that I rely on, so I will then tie it under their chin, and I tie it snug. Of course, I'm always asking them if it's too tight, but tying that nice and snug under their chin. And then you've got this. Now, you may find like, oh, I didn't twist it quite enough there. You can tuck it in. You can use a couple different ways. You can tuck it in underneath like that, and then put a little piece of tape to keep it tight. You can smooth it out like this. It will behave differently on a human head. The body heat and the skin does not react quite like a mannequin does. So
But it has
it's a
to
little
be
bit
flat.
slipperier.
Is what you're saying?
Yes. Now,
It's tight.
creases once they're taped into it are going to be okay. But what is dependent is, of course, making sure that those creases are not going to move while you're adjusting, while you're making any adjustments. So I didn't quite like that. I want to pull that a little bit tighter. Yeah, it's so different on the mannequin head than a human head.
I guess with the human skin, it sticks a little better.
It does.
Oh, yeah.
Entirely.
It's very easy, and so that's why this mannequin head does not react the same way.
Not even close. So, once we've got that there, comes the important steps. Now, these are where, if you forget steps, they become problematic in remembering. So, if you get here and you're chatting away, I've done it before where I just start putting the tape on it, and I haven't drawn my outlines yet. The outlines are the next step. So you've got everything that you've marked on your client's scalp now has to be marked on top of this plastic wrap. So from this point, it's rather careful, and what I like to do is place a hand on top because it allows for the pivot of your hand and a nice smooth line. Getting in front of your client with your face in their face, trying to draw a line like this can get just jaggedy, and it's, it's not as comfortable. So I like to start here and then draw my lines nice and smooth, just using the pivot. So you are going to experience the little divots, as it were, in the plastic. That'll happen. So what you want to do is make mental notes as you're going through this process of where you're placing lines. So for example, are you drawing your line directly against, like I like to, the seam that you're drawing? Do you have like a space or a gap in between? Is it a thick line? Are you cutting on the bottom or the top of the line? You're just trying to, keep a mental note of that. So we outline our entire template area. And so that stuff will happen, it does lift, so just kind of put it back in place. And once the tape is on there, it's going to keep it firmly in place. So this is our main area for the template. Before you begin the tape, you want to mark at least the back. You want to identify front and back. So what I do is I do a backward beat, and that will then on the template read accurately. So you can mark front, whatever, you can mark anything that's important. So if they have like a cowlick that really determines hair growth, you might want to mark where that is or something like that to help you align things in the future. But for the most part, this is the complete step for the demarcation. From that stage, we get into the strapping tape. So it's not that you can use just any tape. The strapping tape has these grains in it, these threads, and those threads are the reason why the template has a stiff nature to it. So what we do with the strapping tape is we draw across this way first, and then we'll go the other direction as well. So here's the approach. You do not want to apply it from one side to side, because you want to try to create tension in the curvature of this template. So what you do is just so you don't have too much tape, like gauge where that would be, and then you put very center, pulling tension in the tape like that, hit the center, and then pulling down and out at the same time. So what I do is I secure that side, and then I'll just kind of run my thumb across so I get that key tension. The first one is kind of the most important one, but they're all pretty equally as important. Now what we do, we go from either direction, and we slightly overlap them in the same manner. Now we're wrapping a ball. So if you're doing this correctly, these points are always going to come back and meet in the center. So what often happens is people will just keep applying it like it was a straight line, and then it gets creases. So if I'm applying it to the top, it's straight down, a level over is angled, a level over is angled. And so now that direction is my center. So I'll add that. And then you keep going until you cover the back. And you've gone a little bit past, and you've got a little bit past the line. Okay. So now just double check everything's where I want it on the front there. And I'll do the same thing moving forward. And as we go forward, keeping in mind it all comes back to the center. It's not just metaphorical that I mean. So we've gone one direction there, but for it to have the appropriate stiffness, we are going to go the other way. So if you're right-handed, usually on the right-hand side, left-handed, you'll be on the left-hand side. And once again, you check the front just to make sure you're not putting the tape in their eyebrows. And it's true, right?
I bet I can see that happening,
Come in
absolutely.
as a lot of engineering, so I can see.
Back at the center again. And then we can go onto both sides. So overlapping, wrapping, the ball. Overlapping, wrapping the ball.
Owen's gonna have all that on video. That was good. That's right.
Not good at keeping up with writing the notes, so I figured I'd do this and
Yeah.
look back on it.
And in the first few times it goes slow, but it does speed up very quickly, obviously. And one for good measure. So, we now have our template. Now, before I even remove it, just to make sure you don't forget this part because it's the most critical aspect of the template itself, is to mark this as top. However you do, T, spell it out, whatever. I usually write my client name and the date on it as well at this point, and then this template goes in their file and it can be used in the future. It helps you measure their hair loss, one thing about it. The other thing about it is that it allows you to then create their templates in advance next time before they get into the salon. So that makes it a little bit faster for you. And then I don't usually untie saran wrap, that's a pain, I usually just cut it off. And we have our template. So at this stage we've marked it as the top.
The reason is because it could get turned inside out and then you go use it the
It's
other
a
way.
mirror image if
Yeah.
you don't, yeah.
Yeah.
So when you're cutting the template, the top becomes the part that you place on the base. And then you turn it inside out and it creates the mirror image. If you were to do it this way, then it would be opposite. It would be a mirror image trying to install it on their head.
Okay.
So now we have a C and we cut the template out. So turning it inside out and using your scissors to follow the line. Now, I know that I draw the line just above, so I'm always cutting on the very outside of the line. It's precise that way. I didn't draw, where it was on top of the hair and on the inside, so. Most people do this way, but it's just a simple relationship with your own design. So carefully going around the entirety of it. New scissors, they feel a little bit weird. If you're watching on Instagram, you'll find varying degrees of care and attention in this process. Some people cut them really rough and they don't much care. Other people you'll see put a full system on the head and then cut it afterward.
Yeah, with the blade.
I think that's insane. I mean, even in cosmetology school, they'll tell 5'10" in the Bonneville.
Oh yeah, there's one. You mean
Yeah,
So
I know.
is this one?
Yep.
Okay.
Because this is my demo.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
So, when we're preparing the system, it comes like this. Now, it's recommended that you kind of prepare this in advance for your client so that they don't see like the coiled up and things like that. But at the same time, once you cut that tag off, you can't like exchange it or you mess it up and everything. So you kind of want to make sure that it's the right one. If you're not 100% certain that it's their color, then just wait and manage their expectations. But we remove it from the acetate mold, and keeping that bag and that mold around can be good. If they come in with an old system that they don't want to throw away yet, then you can use that to store it for later. So this is the hybrid system, the Bonneville or the 143 respectively.
Okay.
So it's lace front, single layer right at the front, then there's a double enforcement layer, and of course the poly around the back. And it's all the human hair. This is my color of the 5, and this is where it fades after a little time. So you can see the fading pretty obviously. Right? So now we prepare it by washing it. Basically a clarifying process, and we're going to get all of that, that shine that you see in there is pretty immediately going to come out of it.
Yeah.
So I will make sure I have my towel here.
When they do that, they apply a conditioner, which is give that shine. It's fade away.
Yeah, okay, that's good to know. So you guys can take a step over here and we'll begin the simple process.
And you know what? That's why they recommend to wash it also, because that conditioner is applied here.
Yeah, absolutely. You've
So
got
to
to.
Oh,
fade the adhesive, it's could
And
be
frankly, even more than just washing it, you have to clarify it with
Yeah.
a salt, an alcohol. Actually, is the best way to go.
hard. Oh, with an actual alcohol?
Yeah,
Okay.
Alcohol and solvents are going to be your best friend. So when you're preparing a system, it's good to go through the bottom. Obviously, you can't when it's a skin system. You have to go through the top, but this way it keeps the direction of the hair always going through.
Any like heat or cold, or it doesn't matter?
Warm is okay. I mean, the synthetic will react to extreme heat.
Mm-hmm.
So you do have to consider that.
And of course, you would recommend the Hairskeen shampoo and conditioner.
That's right.
But
Yeah.
would any
Must be sulfate free.
My,
what is it with me recognizing?
at our salon, we use all Kevin Murphy products. They're usually pretty natural,
Yeah,
sulfate-free stuff
they're
like that.
decent. I mean, when it comes to the Hairskeen stuff, this stuff is formulated with that in mind, as this is the chopper head stuff. You can certainly find good options out there. There are plenty of them, but I'm not going to endorse anybody
Oh yeah,
else's.
I'd rather use the best.
Yeah.
Whatever's meant for
Yeah,
use.
no, I'm just like, when you run out.
Yeah.
Because that will happen at pretty much everywhere and anywhere. What are the things that if we don't have that, could we use if we absolutely needed to?
Yeah, sulfate free is okay. As far as conditioners go, they should be, it's always lighter and water based. Oils are not great because they're hard to rinse out. So, argan and Moroccan oils,
Yeah.
despite the fact they make shiny hair and everything, they're not ideal for hair systems. So as I'm applying the shampoo, I'm getting it all over the face, and I'm just kind of combing out the curls with my fingers. And yeah, it's all a clarification step. I do really love Permarite. That's my very favorite of all of what they've got going on. It's a clarifying shampoo that they offer with Hairskeen or with Medical Coiffure, and it is, I think, the best solution for this step.
Yeah.
So now we're just gonna rinse it all out.
So how long does a whole system from when the client walks in to when they walk out, if it's a brand new client, how long did it used to take you?
In the beginning, it was 3 hours. Takes
Okay.
me it takes me still about 2.
Okay.
Going faster than 2 hours is kind of pushing it. It's
Okay.
rushing things a
Okay,
little bit.
perfect.
So yeah, a 2 to 3 hour service is what you should budget.
Perfect.
A replacement is typically an hour and a half.
But I was going to say it would be much, much shorter anyway, right?
It's not much shorter, and it's variable because it's hugely dependent on the
How they've looked after it.
Yeah, on how you've got to clean it. Okay, So once we've got it on there, now when they're new and clean, you can fold them base to base, but when there's adhesive all over it, you want to go the other way and fold the hair. So once we've got it like that, you can just give it a squeeze to get extra water out. And then you lay it in a towel and you wrap it, you roll it up like that. And then you can just squeeze it in order to dry it. It works incredibly well. Don't wring it, but a nice squeeze is perfect. Dry the inside there.
So we don't have to like blow dry it or like
You
take
don't
out
have to, no.
100% of the water.
But with that said, I'm just getting to that part now. This is the Hairskeen block. You can use other blocks or like a mannequin head that you shaved or something like that. Just try to find one that you can put things into. Canvas block is okay, but you use a lot of wet materials, so that's a little bit of a pain. So, people often ask, how do you tell the front and back? It's obvious with this type of system, but typically what you're looking for on the front is this additional material that allows for you to cut the hairline.
Okay, yeah.
So we get that on our mannequin, and now we're going to brush it up. This is where I do like to blow dry, so that I can tame out all the curls and the volume that's happening in the system. You'll notice I did not condition it right off the bat, because then I'm just putting all of that material, all of that back onto the base, so we don't want to do that. So you can see it's still got a little bit of like a wave to it. This will come out. Now, with that said, when you do a nice deep condition on it, it kind of comes back. It's like a real, there's
So it depends on what you want, right?
there's a subtle wave to it. So for months, I wore a system and maintained the curl just by scrunching every time I got it wet. And so like you can kind of maintain the wave, or you can just brush it out and get straight. So that'll be up to your client.
Got some people love that, right? I've got curl,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
They get-
of course.
yeah, right?
Yeah, I love it. I like it.
Yeah, I always tell,
whether they like it or not.
right? I always tell my male clients when I cut off the curls, I'm like, nah, the girls like the curls, man.
I've never had texture in my hair.
So, there we've got this ready, essentially. At this point, you're kind of bouncing back and forth between your client and the system. You're preparing their scalp, you're preparing the system. So I've gone through this step. Once I've created the template, now I set this guy aside and I move to my client, and we begin to actually remove the hair from that section. So, we don't have that step right now. That'll be a part of our live model process. So we're going to skip straight to the creation of a template. Cool. So now you'll see right there, there's a little like bulk crease there, so I want to like smooth it out. So find the spot on the head where you're pulling the tension, but that's a living crease. That looks like between the two layers. So, there you go. Now, for example, on this block, there's a hard center ridge. This is the symmetrical of the nose. So try to make sure that you've aligned that front through the center of it. Do not rely on the tags at the back. That is not center. That is not always centered. Don't rely on them. They become confusing visual markers sometimes. So I'm happy that that's my center front to back on my block. That's what matters the most. So this is that critical rule in play. The top, it comes off of your client's head and onto your system like this. So
Have you seen that, Carmen?
Yeah, sorry, I'm just writing this down.
So, and once it's removed from your
And
client's
you
head,
put the
it
top part
flips.
down so the hair is
that.
on it. Yep, perfect.
So now we're kind of doing the same thing that we did before. We're looking for all of our markers. And all of our markers are the very front hairline. So as you know, we had that extra little bit, right? That's called the fashion hairline there, that extra part. So we know that this first little stitch here is where we want to try to align our front, the very front point. So once we've done that, we can see, oh, it's actually a bit too rounded and it goes over that part at on the two front corners. So we actually have to back it off so that these two corners, once again, are inside of this line. And then of course the edges. So you're making sure that the entirety of this front hairline sits within this first stitch so that you are capturing
okay.
the entirety of hair. If you go too far forward, then you're just going to get the lace without any hair in it at all.
Yeah.
So you're backing it off to that
Perfect.
point, and you're also at this point looking to see how much you have in the back. Obviously we're not coming anywhere near this with this system, but if this were me, we're taking it right to here. So that's the give and take that you're working with. Sometimes even when you're right at the very front, their template's going right over the edge here. So you sometimes have to decide, like, okay, we're gonna actually have a little missing spot at the very back, which is so forgivable. If you're gonna have any error spots, any forgiveness, it's gonna be at the back.
Did you just leave it a bit longer, right?
Yeah, exactly, your hair is covering.
Okay.
It's growing over. So we can very confidently, now, as we move this back, if you have the room, as we move it back, the hairline gets slightly denser. So right at the front is the thinnest hairline, and as it go back, it's thicker and thicker. So if we want, if it's a young guy, if he can handle that, you know, the realistic dense hairline, then we can back this off to the second line there. But do not go past the third one. Past the third one, it is no longer reinforced, so it can kind of like run. And so what we want to do is get our initial hairline somewhere between those first two threads. So I'm going to go with that so that I get a really nice dense hairline. And now I am looking to see my left and right here, just to see that it's somewhat symmetrical. I've got equal amount of space on both sides. That's sufficient for me. And that base is tucked up against the system itself, against the template itself, sorry. And we can pin.
So did you just put your hand underneath that to push that up?
Yeah.
Closer to this?
I just made sure that
Perfect.
the bubble is there. So the other way is to actually, like, just pressing down. It does actually work pretty well, but you can feel if there's like this, you can
Smoosh
feel
kind
if
of thing?
it's smushy and
Okay.
bubbly, and
Okay.
I just like to double check.
Yeah. Because it doesn't hurt, I'm sure, to double check now.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's an expensive mistake to make.
Mm-hmm.
So when it's laced like this, pinning is really quite easy and not problematic. The poly is, the skin system is a little bit
Okay.
tricky. You don't want to perforate that too much. So, you know, a pin or two, maybe, but try not to go overboard and try not to keep overdoing it. So I'm pretty happy with that. It's not perfectly symmetrical on this part, but on the other side of the hair, there's no difference whatsoever. So now we're at the point where if we're confident with that, we can begin cutting. And I will just let that dry for a quick second and put the laundry in the dryer because we'll need more towels.
Yep.
And then I'll be right back and show you that cut.
Okay.
Awesome, thank you.
And they're nice and easy to handle. So this is the part I want you guys to see in action. Never starting directly on the hairline just because it's the most delicate, and also the lace is so much easier to cut than the skin is. The skin you may need to actually saw a little bit in order to cut through, but the lace runs like cutting fabric or wrapping paper. So what I typically do is I keep so that my hand, my back of my hand is up.
Okay.
Like cutting like this and with your palm of your hand up is awkward.
Yeah.
So with the back of your hand up, that means starting for me on the right side. When you get the blade underneath, what you want to do is always keep the nose of that blade up. And so it's not like that, and you're not likely to catch hair underneath and snip it off. So once you get it going, now this is cut off, so it's not going to matter too much. And you keep that blade facing up, and you can begin to cut. I usually start it around the temple area. And it's stronger there until I cut through, and it immediately bounces. So there we go. I just cut that line up to my template, and then I'm going to turn, get the nose of that shear underneath and pointing up, and then we're sliding along, always keeping the nose of that shear facing up. And you can see that it just runs around the outside. What you want to be doing is not pulling too tight,
Okay.
and also so that it's not pushing underneath. If you pull too tight, and as soon as you let go, it's going to snap back underneath the
shit,
template,
yeah.
right? So you do want some tension. What I find is rather than pulling, you're lifting.
Okay.
And when you lift, then you're just connecting that edge in a really finite way. So you keep the nose pointing up on your shear, and like you can see with the lace, you're just running around the edge. And essentially what's happening is, just like the top tooth on your YS part comb, you're pulling apart, you're sectioning that hair as you're cutting the two sections apart, as you're separating them.
How many did you wreck before you got to?
I've not wrecked any.
Really?
Yeah.
Awesome. That's good to hear.
Yeah.
I've had some close calls.
Where you got all hot and prickly, you know that feeling? When
Yeah,
you got hot
yeah,
and prickly,
absolutely.
like, oh god.
I mean, it's this funny thing, but like, remember to breathe while you do this.
Yeah, you don't want to pass out while you're cutting.
Yeah, it is nerve-wracking. There's no question about it. So once I get to this hairline, I'll just make double sure that I'm pulling it up a little bit so that it's nice and tight against the edge, and then I'm coming around the front.
You don't even have to close the shears, eh?
Yeah, not on the lace.
Well, it depends on the shears too.
Yeah.
All the way around. There we go. So this all comes off. Now hold on to these cutoffs because they're perfect when your next client comes in and they want a solution for alopecia. You don't necessarily have to buy a whole new system and make them spend all of that money. You can sell them fragments from an old one. So now what we've got is our finished prepared system, which tidily matches our template. Really happy with how that looks. And
I was looking for the bald dude.
Yeah.
Find him.
now we can do the test fitting, the dry fit. Now on this system, it's nice and easy. We can see that marking for the front hairline, but respectively on a poly system or on a single layer lace system, it may be hard to identify front and back.
So these are the ones that you use the most?
For a first time client, I almost always go with a hybrid because of the durability,
Yeah.
except when they're too dense. Because these are both hybrids are dense systems.
Okay.
So if they don't want a dense system, you're going to look to a single layer lace or a skin system. So you just need to make sure that you have a visual marker as to the front and the back of your system. So now I always do the test fit just to see that it goes right where I expect it to. So what I want to do in here, because I've still got all my lines and everything, right? So I place it down. No, first off, I want to like see what's centered, because sometimes you can kind of easily lopside it. So you want to like look at your center point there, and then just make sure you check to see that you're actually following that line. So I'm confident with that. I'm just going to place that right there and make sure that as I'm rolling it on, it is aligning with where I expect it to. So that's tidy, that's tidy, that's tidy. It's a little bit too far back. So yeah, I think that the lineup is pretty good all the way around. And his hairline, that lace falls right on the line that I drew. So all things considered, that's a perfect cut.
Jeez, you can't even see it on the mannequin.
Even on a mannequin, right? Yeah.
Impressive.
So now you'll see, based on that cut, even with the small cut, that natural cut first. Okay. So I'll borrow from this. So the tape, and you've been given a swab here for that process too. The tape is the Hairskeen strips. These are super durable, excellent tapes. There's a couple varieties that are available, some of them in small kind of pre-cut pieces with curvature. I find that those are useful, especially right around the hairline, but there's often some straight sections that those don't work perfectly for. So I personally like this tape because I can customize the cut on each one. So typically about like an inch, like the piece being about an inch, or every second line is one way to consider it. So I often find it's about 10 to 14 pieces to do the entire circumference of this. So
and why would you use tape apart from adhesive? I know that you mentioned the weave and the lace versus the skin, but why would you?
There's a variety of reasons. It may be because of the bond, like I said, maintenance. So if they have to do home maintenance, then the tape is easier. If they're going on a long vacation, and I want them to be empowered to be able to update and make changes, then the tape is going to be a really great option for that.
Okay, so but most of the time you would recommend the adhesive?
I prefer the liquid adhesive bond.
Okay.
Most of the time.
Okay.
There are a few occasions where the tape is a preferable.
Perfect.
That's my preference. If you are watching online, some people are entirely the opposite. They love and swear by the tape, and the liquid bond is overkill or messy. Now, if you're trying to avoid cleanup and maintenance in the lace, because how you use the liquid bond in relation to the lace is very important, and how your client behaves with it. So if it's really hot and it starts to bleed, kind of like run, it can be very problematic in cleaning the lace. So the tape is often a little safer, but the reality is once the tape starts to break down, so if you're supposed to see them at 4 weeks, but they don't come to see you until 6 or 7, and the breakdown of whatever adhesive they've been using happens, then it starts to bleed and run. Once that occurs, it's in the lace. And once
So that
it gets
ruins
through,
the actual, so you have to educate them about how that can ruin their $1,000 investment, right?
yes, and you also have to be prepared to do a vigorous clean and get it out.
So you can correct it if that does happen?
Yeah. Now, I was just talking with a client yesterday, and he was just in India. He had the system reapplied while he was there, and he said that he had to fight them because there's quite a lot of adhesive in the lace, and they wanted.
Going to
They were gonna give it a gasoline bath.
Gasoline.
Bit of petrol in there.
I
Give it a
mean,
go.
it's okay if you're gonna use an alcohol bath. It's okay if you use the safe removers, the like heavy duty Hairskeen removers. These are my best solutions for the deep clean. But I understand exactly why gasoline bath
Yeah.
work.
Oh yeah.
I just
Take
think
a lot
that's
more than
insane.
glue on.
And the other thing I told them is, well, that's because they use synthetic, and they don't use the natural hair at all. Like they would never even consider that if they were truly using human hair. So, yeah.
Brent, what do you only use?
I like a tuna one with pickles.
Tuna, pickles?
Yeah.
6 or 12?
6 things.
Okay. Owen,
Steak and cheese.
steak and cheese? And 6 or 12?
Sorry, what?
6 instead
Six
of
should be
6.
good. Thank you.
And Carmen?
Can I have roast chicken and bacon,
Roast chicken and bacon, okay.
please?
Excellent. So, and just plain chips if it's coming with cheese or something.
Yeah,
yeah,
just
of
like
course.
regular
Yeah.
ones or something.
Yeah.
And you prefer water or Coke or soda?
I'll take a water, and I'm also gonna get a coffee at lunchtime.
Okay.
Could I have a Coke Zero or a Diet Coke,
Coke?
please?
Yeah, Coke.
Yeah.
Just Coke.
Yeah.
Regular Coke's good with me.
Coke.
Yeah. I'll probably try and find coffee too at lunch.
So, what I like to do with the pieces is to custom cut them. That's why I like just cutting, preparing like a dozen of these, cutting them off the end, and then I go and I start lining them up. So I make sure there's one nice piece right in the front and center. So I'll line it up, and I just take a visual reference of how I'm cutting that in order to fit properly. So I know that I'm just cutting a rounded edge with just a fraction off the front. And that's going to fit pretty tidily. I'm gonna have to just make it a little bit loose.
So you put the tape right up to the edge of it?
Yes, ideally you want it as close as possible. You want that bond to be, especially on the front hairline, you want that bond to be right down.
Yeah.
Because they obsess over the feeling that you get.
They'll be touching it.
Like,
all the
okay,
time,
I mean, you guys are looking at me, you can't really see anything here, but use your hand and just touch the hairline. Your client freaks out
Yeah.
about that little lift, that little
It's funny, you
raised
can
feeling.
even then
Oh,
you can
okay,
barely
yeah,
feel it.
yeah.
I mean, yes, it's not visible, but and so I often get like, oh my God, it's lifting. Like,
It's like
no,
because you're
it
picking
is
at
not.
it.
Now, sometimes it does, but
Yeah,
typically this.
because you've been doing this to it, rubbing it the whole
That's
time,
right. You're sticking your hands in your oil from your fingers, and you're putting it inside the hairline, and you're making the problem worse.
Yeah.
Leave it alone is your best solution.
Yeah.
When the adhesive becomes wet, they go swimming or they go running and they sweat, and it does legitimately start to lift. The reality is that if they let it dry, they let the humidity evaporate, then it grabs again. So you let them know, just put it down, leave it alone. The next time in 20 minutes or an hour you try, you're gonna realize it's fastened.
Well, that's pretty cool. So it'll almost kind of like reset
It
itself
resets.
in minor ways.
Yeah, 9 times out of 10 it will, unless the actual bond is broken.
That's one of the things I was wondering the most about this is like what happens if it peels up a little bit. You got to take the day off work and go get it done. Or...
No, I mean then there's
Yeah.
So how we apply the tape is there's a center piece there. So you actually just like bend it and twist, and you'll lift the 2 corners rather than fishing for those edges with your nails.
Getting your fingers all over the
Yeah,
glue.
so you get those 2 pieces up, and then you can just pull them off really easily. And there's a little bit of space for you to be able to grab and handle. So now I'm gonna place it right where I cut it, or as close to the front as I possibly can. And there's my first piece. Looks rather precise, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, and of course,
Looks like you know what you're doing, man.
you get
You've probably
faster
done it a few
and
times,
faster
yeah.
at this
This
as you
isn't
go.
his first rodeo.
Yeah, exactly, right.
Yeah, you get faster and faster as you go. But like at first, it's a lot of lining up, and if you want to do a good job, then it's going to take a second.
Yep.
So now I'm going to look at this one, and I can
Also,
see
we overlap.
we overlap.
Okay.
So I can
I
see
was
just a
curious
couple
about
of
that.
corners, So, but it's kind of straight. So let's see how that works. That's reasonably good. So once again, I am going to twist, grab those two corners, pull away those tabs, and I just throw everything on the ground. I'm not like worried about that jump. You focus on the
that's
rope.
what brooms are for.
So then you lift this corner. Now, see, I didn't clarify this with alcohol in advance. So, oops, now the tape
it's
doesn't
peeling
like
out.
sticking.
Okay.
So, I mean, that is a step that I should have gone through. So forgive me. But here's the example. I usually have an alligator or a duckbill clip with me. And if you just slip that underneath like that and pull the tape back, it often works really well to
Keep it.
get that. Yeah,
Just to pin it down while you peel it off.
exactly. And then just slightly overlap those two pieces and fold that back. So now we do this all the way around the perimeter of the system. And for your client, you may wish to put a piece in the top to keep that like bubble, because with the tape you have this sensation that it's not fully attached, whereas the liquid bond is like truly secure. So if there's a bubble in the top that they can feel, that often throws them off. In addition, when you're doing the haircut and you're pulling hair,
It'll feel like
Oh,
it's
yeah,
there.
yeah.
But
You
the
can
tape
actually
will
change
hold
the
it in that
length.
spot.
That's
Oh,
right.
okay, but it will hold it in that spot. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
So I'm not going to do the whole thing here, but it's that process all the way throughout. And now at the end of it, you have, then I get 4 applications out of each one of them.
I have tons of that stuff at home.
So the reason kinesiology tape is because it's actually malleable in every direction. Now you're not using it here for tension purposes, you're using it entirely for its ability to bend. So what we do is we mark the front hairline. We have our markings, right? We've got our line that we've drawn in there, so we know very ideally where that is. And what we do is we're going to place this tape on top of the line. Because remember, our template came just to the very top of the line. We drew our line around it. Now, before I get into that, I'm going to show you one thing, because let's say you're doing a reapplication process. If you're doing the reapplication process, you've removed this, you've cleaned it, and now you've put it back on their head, and you've lined it up at the back and the sides so you know exactly where it should be. At that point, take your barber's pencil or your eyeliner or whatever and trace the outline and reestablish that line. But use the system to do it, so it's exactly where it should be. Right now, it's easy because we know where that is. We've done this before. So now what we do is take the kinesiology tape. I start right on the center and I place it on top of the line. Right there. Don't put it in his eyebrow normally. So holding that and just going along with your thumb, not pulling tension into the tape, you're just bending it to cover that hairline marking. Right on the top.
So when you apply the adhesive, you're not guessing, right?
That's right.
Exactly where you need it to be.
Does it also, like you were talking earlier about sometimes the adhesive might start to drip or whatever, does that kind of make like a bank there or a dent?
Right, yeah, and I'll show you exactly that. So at this point now, I would take a little bit of alcohol on a swab, and I will just go along and I'll erase any of the line that is visible that pops out the top, because you don't want that to get painted underneath the adhesive, because then it's visible and there. you'll see that line. So you want to remove it there. When you take this tape off, it often takes the actual adhesive or the actual marking with it, but you will still have a chance to clean it off because it's not got adhesive all over it.
Yeah.
So this allows you to keep it nice and tidy and clean. Please keep in mind when you're using these mannequin heads that every single material, even the barber pencil, kind of permanently stays. So you're not, it's easy on the skin, but not so much on here. The mannequins are less forgiving. So now that we've got that, we can really tidily and quite quickly paint our
Does the adhesive come with a brush, or do you have to supply your own
You
brush?
have a brush in your kit.
Oh, I see it.
Ooh, beautiful.
Perfect.
This little,
Yep.
this little
Seen
guy.
that one in videos.
Yeah, and the beauty is it's really easy to clean. Once the adhesive is on it, let the adhesive just cure and go clear on it, and you can just
Peel it off.
Peel it off. Super easy. So I'm just going to use a touch of my good stuff here. So we've clarified it now. We're doing an alcohol swab. It's called Dermagraft. It's the large tube. It's very similar formula to that you have. This is just the sort of the commercial size.
Oh, okay.
So now we're going to apply a little adhesive to the scalp. The benefit of having that tape is how quickly and carelessly we can apply a perfect hairline. I just paint up so that I'm not like pushing the actual tape down. And what this means, imagine you're like hand painting up to the invisible line.
Yeah.
It's inconsistent and slow. So that just made it
Yeah.
lightning easy, super
Yeah.
straight, right? Now, all the way around. And kind of like a palette. I put it on the top so it's not running off, and I use it a little bit like a palette.
And so how much, I suppose it's just hit and miss to start off with, right? How much you use?
Yeah, and keep in mind that like these mannequin heads, very little, because it doesn't really absorb or anything. So put it right to the edge, all the way around, and you're smoothing it. And then you're going to smooth out those bulks. You're going to see those bulks. Often use your other hand to hold down the hair and keep it out of the way. And again, this is one of those processes that at first you're going a little bit slower with, and you speed the process up. So you saw how little I used there in order to coat on the mannequin. That is not the case on a human head.
Using a lot more.
And with that said, even on the mannequin head, you will find that it's not super sticky. It will be more effective on your human. Okay. So we do that and we wait for it to cure. Also on the mannequin, this takes a long time for it to cure. The body heat of the human head definitely speeds that part of the process up. So we wait, we talk, we walk away, whatever it is. Do not let yourself get hasty with this process.
Okay, so sorry, how long do you leave it for?
Well, until it's clear. And
Okay.
it's visibly going to tell you. Just don't apply your system before you're confident.
So
that
even
that's
these tiny little bits here, they're probably...
Yeah, those are going to go clear too.
So wait till they're, like your thickest piece,
Yeah.
wait till that's clear.
That means it's still wet. When you put something on top of it, it's just going to squeeze through that lace.
Oh, of course,
And,
okay,
yeah,
there you go, that's the
that's-
explanation right there,
That,
thank you.
That's
that
what
being
you're
said, can
Okay.
we wait too long?
Not really.
Okay.
I mean, you're not going to wait till tomorrow, so if
Yeah,
you, if you wait an extra 5 minutes,
Yeah, it's not gonna
good.
like dry and
So
cure
what's
and
the
not
longest
work.
you've left, like what, maybe you've had to take a call?
Underneath, and your pinkies are on the outside. So your pinkies are holding the hair out
Away from it.
away.
Okay.
Now, if there's adhesive all over this or tape, you're gonna have to hold it like this instead of directly on there. So your pinkies and sometimes your other fingers can help.
Okay.
Right? So the motion when you're putting this on the head is almost like walking like this behind. So that just like that motion underneath the system is kind of how you're applying it.
Like playing a piano. Well, that's what
Okay.
keep it away.
So I showed you before, I've got it symmetrical, top to bottom, front to back. Things are looking good. I'm standing there, both of their feet are on the floor, they're sitting straight, and they're usually looking up just a little bit. And so now I find that very front part on the hairline, and you can kind of come up, like slide up until you feel it grab. That's a possibility. So you place that down. Now pull left and right. What you're going to do is look right there to see how that's lining up, and then come to the other side and look to see how that's lining up, and then pull across. Pull the tension across. And then rock your fingers along the top, like the center, and then pull down to the sides. Then you're going to continue to pull it back and out. Back and out. Back and out. And then you're letting that last piece fall down. Okay? That is the steps. Now, when you cut your system, before you put any adhesive on your mannequin head, just try that a few times. Yes, it's going to move a little bit. That's fine. Don't worry too much about that. Daily maintenance,
Just
that
use-
alcohol is
Okay.
what they will need.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And you showed them that.
Photo stuff? Oh, of course. Awesome. Cool. So, our procedure for, but that's not going to be the case with the lace system.
Okay.
We would be,
Hasn't
hasn't
on
been
it
too
for a
long.
time. And always finger, never like a comb or anything to do that.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to snag things.
Okay.
So, all I'm doing is,
And so that's why you go stuff with Adorn.
yeah, I mean, you're going to do everything anyway because you still want to clean residue.
Are fingernails good for this or not?
Sometimes, yeah, I get right in there like that.
Okay.
That perfect stage where it's just wet enough, just dry enough.
So there's those cotton balls attaching
Dabbed
to
on.
the adhesive.
Yeah. So at this stage now, you can do away from the hair as much as possible. I don't find it actually works very well. Going like around the circumference is easiest. So we just kind of, with a little bit of alcohol, we start pulling like this.
Actually moving pretty easy, eh?
Mm-hmm.
Once you've macerated it properly, then yes. If it's actually bled through the lace, no.
That's when you're in trouble. That's when the brush comes in.
Yeah, as a
And-
late stage.
And fingers.
This
and,
is your first stage of it.
So if you apply the adhesive properly, will you ever have that issue of it bleeding through the lace?
Yes, if they go too long before they come back to see you, or using temperatures and that are really high, like it. So, like I said, slight curve of these pointed upward. Now I'll turn, and we begin. A little tricky. I'm gonna get right in there.
No worries.
And remember, I'm lifting it, not pulling it. Lifting. Oh, felt a little bit of hair there, so back it off. Turn. And it does just run just like the lace does if you can get it a little bit taut. Right? You can just run that seam.
Ah oui, ah non, c'est pas beau. Allez, si je le mets sur la page Facebook de
Like when I get mad at each other, they never talk in French so we can't hear.
Didn't work?
I don't know.
I did something silly.
Oh.
I just wanted
I see.
I said, I love how you guys go to French when you want to say, you bastard.
There we go. Keep running. Running. Keep running. Marker there. And I can see as I go how well it's fitted. Oops. There we go.
You can get in there and video that right there at the back if you want.
You can see left and right how even that is.
Yeah.
Right? So we'll just let that fall and make sure that it goes right with right there. So, excellent.
So I saw that there was different adhesives for oily scalp, very oily scalp, and normal scalp, or whatever it was.
We're not. I don't think we have the same formulas. That where did you see that in the
I saw
Hairskeen
that,
book?
yeah, the Hairskeen book.
Yeah, I think that's a little bit of an older print.
Oh, okay.
The Kappa Bond is no longer the oily, very oily. The tube that you have in your kit is the very oily recipe.
Yeah.
And Stefan and I both love that one, so we were really excited to see it come back.
So would that be best for pretty much everyone though?
No, we can't say everybody, but yes, I find that, and the Dermograph 2 that I'm using, those are both. There we go. Sticky stuff. So over the line, bury the lead. Bury the lead. I'm just going to stick that to his head. While I come around here. Now the line's almost gone, but I still see exactly where I put it. There we go. So nicely.
Moving for
Yes.
me.
Yeah, well, the skin kind of meets the spatula or whatever that is.
Yeah,
so-
and the adhesive is adhering.
yeah.
Whereas on
a
that,
smile.
now on a human head, you're going to use a lot more than you did on your mannequin.
Oh, that's right, yes.
Kind of absorbs it.
Yeah, it's definitely more. Get less coverage because it's actually, it seems to take the coat and you can actually see it, whereas you couldn't, like, you kind of move it around on the mannequin head,
Yeah.
whereas you smooth it out on the human.
Yeah, it seems to be more moving for
Yes.
me.
Yeah, well, the skin kind of meets the spatula or whatever that is.
Yeah,
so-
and the adhesive is adhering.
yeah.
Whereas on
Have a
that,
smile for
I love this because it goes to show it's not easy, right?
yeah,
Like
it's not always just.
It requires that. That's pretty perfect on this side.
Yeah, this side looks pretty good as well. So, is it over a bit on this side?
No.
I love this because it goes to show it's not easy, right?
Yeah,
Like
it's
still
not always just
it requires that.
in the middle. They're right in the center. So I'm lining it up just to make sure I don't have it like this. I've got the symmetry in place. And I'm going to get my pinky fingers on the outside so I can hold back that hair. Right there. There we go, Stefan. He's already got his head up, which is great. So, you see that line up? And then I literally put that first thing down.
And it sticks better than the
Now,
92 by the look of it.
I'm going to turn it up and I'm going to align my left side like that. Yep, that line has begun. I'm going to come over here and align my right side like that. And then I'm going to, in the center, I'm going to pull it out, smooth it down. And you can see how that line is coming together. This line is coming together. There's a little bit of stretch that happens. Once you get around that bend,
Things start to get easier.
yeah, and so again, back in the middle, pulling back.
I feel like I'm breathing down your neck,
That's
but I
fine.
really need to.
No,
Do you want to trade spots?
Do you want to? No, I was going to say you get in so you.
so
can
there's a
do it.
little tension, I'm pulling in the middle, and then I'm fastening down as I go. A little tension in the middle,
Stay.
and
Don't go
down.
on.
And I am just kind of pulling a little bit to the left because I've created a lopside here, if you can see it.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
little.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a good lesson. Let's back it off.
That makes me feel better that the
Yeah.
pro is made. Do you know what I mean? It's and take your time. I think that's the big thing with this, right? There's no rush to get it on.
I also didn't realize with this stuff that if you do accidentally stick it, like you can just back it off with this stuff. You know, I thought like if you stuck it and you stuck it,
You were
had to
done.
rip it
Yeah,
off
that's
and then you
what I
had to
thought
clean
too.
the glue
Yeah,
and redo
yeah.
it.
No, alcohol or positioning spray will do this.
But the repositioning spray is definitely the better one to use.
Yeah, it lasts just a little bit longer than the alcohol does.
Is it any less like aggressive on the skin?
Yeah, it smells better.
Okay. It's usually enough to sell.
Yeah, that exactly. So
So
where
how
did
far, I was
it
going to say,
begin?
how far back do you have to go?
Well, you can see the symmetry of it while you're doing this. So let's see, where did I do a turn? It looks like just before this. It's already getting sticky toward the back.
That's all. Can I touch that?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Maybe I did it right off the bat. This process, though, is more forgivable with the skin system than the lace.
The lace would be.
It would be a little bit, it would be pulling hair.
Oh yeah, that. And
You
that,
know, so
that you don't want to
you're
see
going
that,
a
do you?
bit slower. So, looks like we're okay here. Now I've got to let it just evaporate a little bit before I drop it back down. So I can see where that tension began. I started pulling too heavily on this
Okay.
side.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just a little bit on there.
Does that help at all? You've never.
Maybe.
Got, you've never got another hand,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So now I'm going to pull that side down first, just to make sure, and then I'm going to pull over here, and I feel that right away is a little bit better. You may find that because, oh, it's not sticking. That's just because
But it will.
It will.
That's pretty perfect on this side.
Yeah, this side looks pretty good as well. So, is it over a bit on this side?
No.
I love this because it goes to show it's not easy, right?
Yeah,
Like
it's
still
not always just.
it requires that.
Yeah.
Excuse my hand, I'm just gonna go kind of close there to the hairline. Beautiful, thank you.